Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. These last few weekends have been very, very big in the recruiting world. Lots of visitors here and there, lots of commitments, some decommitments. It's been real busy, and keeping up with all of it. The folks over at 24/7 is Sonny Ship. He joins us now via the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Sonny, how are you?
Good, man. How you doing, brother?
Doing quite well. I'm thinking things are pretty busy in your world this time of year. LSU added 3 commitments, lost one over the weekend. So let's kind of dive into it. I want to start with Jesse Harrell because he is in this class of 2025, an edge rusher that the Tigers got a commitment from. What can you tell us about his recruitment and his ability?
Yeah, top 10 guy in the country at his position, probably around 215 pounds or so, and really has that kind of body that you can just envision that once he gets in a strength and conditioning program like at LSU or in the SEC, he's just going to blow up. He's just going to put on a lot of good weight. And it'd be nice if they could, in a perfect world, if they could pair him up with Damian Shanklin, the 4-star defensive end out of Indiana, who visited that first weekend of June. Then you would see Kevin Peoples with a big smile on his face.
I know that this is going to go down as the Bryce Underwood, Harlem Berry class. They're the celebrities of this class. But when you look at the depth that they're assembling, the back end of this class as it is assembled right now, how would you expect it to finish in terms of the rankings?
I think you're, and kind of depending on which service you look at, you can really see this class as right on the borderline of a top 5 class. I think it's ranked as high as number 2, number 3, maybe even a little bit lower than that now with Jabori Antoine opening things back up. But I think he'll eventually get back on board, and I think you'll start to see LSU really generate some momentum here in the coming days and coming weeks. You've got several announcements that are going to happen, over the next month, which is a proverbial dead period, but it's going to be anything but dead in terms of recruiting from the sense of the news that's going to come out of it. Because June was crazy as far as the unofficial visits go. And now what you have is you've got this dead period right here. You've got kids, you've got their families, you've got their coaches who are sitting around thinking about things, and let's go ahead and get this decision out of the way before you report for fall camp for your senior season. And I think that's why you're going to see a really windfall of commitments here coming up in the next week to 3 weeks.
I had to check this and make sure that my eyes weren't deceiving me, but I'm looking at 24/7 right now, and I'm looking at Jabori Antoine's profile, and we know that he decommitted to LSU over the weekend, and I see a crystal ball pick come in from one Sonny Ship to LSU with a confidence level of 7. Explain.
Yeah, I didn't have a pick on Antoine the first time that he committed. It was kind of one of those deals that kind of caught you off guard as far as the timing of it goes. But I really think that he's going to end up back in this class, and I really don't think that you'll see this drag out too far. Corey Raymond comes back to LSU after leaving. He's got he's got a kid in his own backyard of New Iberia, who grew up an LSU fan. Corey goes out, gets him committed 11 days after being on the job. I don't see this playing out too long. I just think it's a situation to where you probably had some channels crossed. You probably had some in this world that we now live in, to where everybody's got to be feeling good and be told that they're, why they should be feeling good, to where you'll see this thing get worked out pretty quickly. And I think Antoine will be back with LSU.
Who's LSU fighting off there? I know he spent some time in the Sunshine State.
Yeah, Florida State, Miami, and I think you also have to look. You also go back and you look at some teams who have some players who Antoine kind of, I guess kind of models himself after. Derek Lewis out of Westgate is one who comes to mind. He's down at Texas now. And I think that, when you see some situations like that, wouldn't be surprised to see if a team like that kind of gets in the mix and tries to get him on campus and tries to, just tries to really get into game. But I think right now, Florida State, Miami, those are the ones who got the official visits. And Antoine, ironically, he was supposed to be at LSU's Friday Night Lights camp on Friday night, but he didn't make it for that. And I guess that was a prelude of things to come.
Sure was, and we'll see. And as you think things will work out for the home team on that one, things worked out for the home team with a couple of guys over the weekend in the 2026 class: Ja'Kai Anderson, a wide receiver, and then Richard Anderson, a defensive lineman from Carr. What can you tell us about those two guys?
Yeah, you can never. This is a class to where if you go back and if you think of LSU and defensive line recruiting, it's almost been like we used to cringe when it was LSU and offensive line recruiting over the last couple of years, just because it's been such a need. So anytime you can get one of the state's best 4-star defensive tackle, Richard Anderson, 6'3" range, probably a little bit over 300. Anytime you can get a guy like that on board before he even starts his junior season, you got to look at that as promising, especially when you look and you see how deep Louisiana's 2026 class is, and even still can be. You've got Jakeem Stewart, who, he's a 5-star defensive lineman. You got Lamar Brown, who's a 5-star offensive lineman out of U High. But if you switched around and you put that star rating on him as a defensive lineman, he would probably come out as a 5-star by most services with that account. And so you got Dylan Berryman. You've got Dominic McKinley's younger brother, Darius McKinley, over at Acadiana. You've just got a lot of defensive linemen in Louisiana. And it's almost a shame because in a perfect world, you'd like to see that average out to where you get 2 to 3 a year, and then you can just keep mopping up in state. But, that's going to be one of those years to where we go back and we look at positions, how stacked they really are. And you say, man, it's a shame that LSU can't just find room for all of them.
Yeah, it's I guess it's a good problem to have, but I understand where the trepidation might come from. You don't have room
let's ration these out
to get
a
everybody in the boat at one time. C.J. Wiley, wide receiver from the state of Georgia, of course, his dad Chuck played at LSU. He's going to make a decision this week. What do you know about that?
Yeah, tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Time, he's supposed to reveal his decision. And man, that was fun watching Chuck Wiley back in the day. That defensive line LSU had: Gabe Northern, James Gilliard, Booger. I mean, that's an underrated defensive line right there that does not get enough credit in the LSU annals and just in talking about some of the best defensive lines in LSU history. But I think CJ's probably going to choose Georgia tomorrow in state. Georgia's been recruiting him forever. I think it was one of his first offers. Really has made him a real priority here of late, and so I think he'll end up choosing Georgia. But we saw it last year, and I think you're going to see it even more and more. With each year that we have these just no regulation whatsoever in recruiting and NIL and everything else that encompasses recruiting. But I think you're going to start to see that you'll see that these recruitments, while they, kids commit in June, kids commit in July, they open them up a little bit more. There's an unofficial visit here. There's a visit here. And I think that we're going to see more and more of that as time goes. And so, just because if you don't win out the first time around, there can be a second time, there could be a third time with the transfer portal. It's almost like, you used to hate talking about who came in second, but now if you come in second in recruiting in these days, you're actually setting yourself up for a potential run down the road.
Absolutely, become the next viable option when things open back up. They looked into an August signing period over the last few weeks, and it eventually got voted down. What do you know about how coaches and people in the industry feel about putting together an even earlier signing period?
Yeah, I think if you talk to coaches and if you talk to enough of the coaches and said, okay, if there's one thing we can fix in recruiting right now, what do you think it is? I think that would probably be on the lower end of the spectrum, the earlier signing period, just because there's so much that needs to be fixed when it comes to, when it comes to the NIL landscape, when it comes to what the collectives' roles are going to be, what the roles of the universities are going to be with this, with this $1 billion settlement that is going through and stuff. So I think there's so much other stuff that they really need to kind of figure out before we say, okay, let's move up and let's have another signing day. Because, I don't really see the benefit. The benefit is in one way is that, yes, it can benefit the coaches because they don't have to coddle as many kids nearly as much anymore because they're already signed. But then on the flip side of it, everything that the NCAA tries to impose seems like it gets shot down by the first person who takes it to court. So it's like, would an earlier signing day even really alleviate that in the long run?
Who's to say? But I don't think we're going to have to worry about that at this point because they're not moving forward with that. Sonny, thanks so much for your time, man.
Yeah, man, you have a good one, Hunt.
Sure will. That's Sonny Ship, 24/7 Sports. Check him out at Go 24/7. He and Glenn West do an awesome job keeping up with recruiting and team coverage as well. And busy time in the recruiting world. I was interested to see. He thinks Jabori Antoine heads right on back to LSU at some point, and it would make a lot of sense. I mean, we talk about Frank Wilson, running backs, New Orleans, Corey Raymond, defensive backs, New Iberia. Feels like somebody that they should have the inside track on. But maybe just takes a little more recruiting to get Jabori Antoine back in the boat to this class that's shaping up to be a really, really good one in the 2025 cycle. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.